Press space to jump. Press space while jumping to double jump. Pretty straightforward. Oh dear. Oh my gosh, how do you dies in a tutorial? Whee! Can you go up the stairs? Whee! Press left shift to dive. Oh. So there's a button just to jump out of the window. A defenestration button. Oh my gosh. Hi and welcome to a Nomad in Gameland. Today we're starting our free on Epic Games series, where we'll be testing out the free games Epic Games throws out every week to see if they're actually worth downloading and playing, or if you miss it for free, whether they're actually worth buying at some point. Now, I just mentioned Epic Games a lot there. We are not affiliated with them in any way, or the maker of any game. This is going to be a completely independent review. And today we are looking at Severed Steel, which you can pick up for Epic Games for free until the 3rd of August 2023. So in the UK where I am, the game is normally priced at £9.49 at Steam. On Epic outside of this week, it jumps to £22.99. And the lowest CD key I could find was about £7.60. You can get the game on Switch, PlayStation, yada yada yada, but I'm a PC gamer, let's not care about that. Let's jump straight in. What is this game all about? Now, I had never heard of this game, and I had no idea what to expect. So Severed Steel is a single-player first-person shooter, but apparently from the perspective of like an acrobat or something. You'll be shooting baddies in bullet time, running on walls, and kicking doors at people. It's like Max Payne on steroids. There are also a couple other game modes. The Firefight game mode is about completing challenges where you get extra points for killing baddies in a particular way. For example, running on the wall and killing 2 in one go. There's also the Rogue Steel game mode, which is a bit confusing to me. You collect cards after each wave of baddies. These cards all have different effects, like changing your weapon type, making your gun explode when you throw it at someone, or even small things like reducing the amount of bullet time available. But what is Severed Steel actually like to play? So let me give you a rundown on how to get around the map. You can slide by pressing Control, and you will slide for a surprisingly long time, even upstairs. This was the main action I did throughout the game, and in all honesty, it should probably be nerfed a bit, but I'll talk about that later. You can also dive by pressing Shift. I never really figured out the proper use for this other than to smash windows. It seemed like a shorter and slightly higher up slide. No surprise, you can jump by pressing space, and you can wall run by jumping onto a wall. I really loved wall running, and I tried to incorporate as much as I could when I was paying attention to what I was actually doing. The movement itself feels a little too fluid at first. Once you get used to it, it's incredibly satisfying. Aside from moving around, you got like a godlike kick function, bullet time, and after the tutorial, a cannon for an arm. I really love the kick in this game. You can use it as a melee attack, either to stun an enemy and have a chance to steal their weapon, or just knock an enemy out completely. Or, my personal favourite, you can kick a door to knock someone out. You can also kick the walls to give yourself a little boost, but I never actually found a use for this. Bullet time's always great, but because it's the right click on my mouse, I found myself using it by accident a bunch of times when I just wanted to aim. And the cannon arm, this allows you to blast through walls, but you can also use it to damage enemies. Outside of basic movement, very little is actually explained to you. It might be intuitive to people who play a lot of shooters, but to a nomad like me, it was actually very confusing from the beginning. I wasn't even sure how to refill my health bar, or even where my health bar was. Please don't laugh. But for the newbies like me, the health bar is this little red thingy at the bottom right hand side of the screen, and it gets filled up when you kill enemies. I honestly think this is a great mechanic. There were so many times when I was so close to being killed, like one shot away, and then you make that last ditch jump or slide and you get the kill, and then you can start running again. The ammo in your held weapon is shown in your crosshair, as well as how much bullet time you have left. Again, please don't laugh, but it took me a good hour to realize this. I think bullet time also recharges based on your kills, but I never ran out throughout the game. Regular ammo doesn't replenish, so if you're out, you're gonna have to find or take another weapon. The cannon ammo is collectible with these flashy blue bodies. You can see how many shots you have left on the bottom left hand side of your screen. Now, I've spent way too much time just explaining the basics of the game. Let's talk about the gameplay itself, because I loved it. The game is simple. What you have to do is shoot things and then find the exit. The non-stop fast-paced action combined with moments of bullet time and acrobatics really made me feel like a movie star. Call it flow state or the zone or zen or whatever, this is how Severed Steel feels to play. Running on a wall in bullet time and then shooting 3 enemies from behind was relaxing, empowering, and it really made me feel like time was slowing down. It's like you're making a million decisions a second. So satisfying. The weapons available are varied, but in all honesty, I never paid attention to any of them. Every once in a while, I'd get a powerful weapon like a shotgun, not notice, and then be like, damn, when someone actually explodes. But I never felt like I needed to collect any particular weapons because they're so short-lived anyway. Another great thing about the game is the environments, which are destructible. Even in the tutorial, when I was trying to figure out how to jump and kick the wall, I looked back and I saw I was leaving dents in it. Using your cannon to blast the walls opens up the map to a ton of different opportunities, and the freedom to take on the map the way you see fit. I got lost so many times, but one of the ways I could get to where I needed to get to was just to ignore the floor plan and just blast a hole in the wall. It was great. Now the cannon, combined with acrobatics, did make the game feel a bit too free at times. Especially later in the game, I honestly felt like I could scale a skyscraper just by running around the walls over and over again. And given that I don't think there's any fall damage, this is both amazing and also a little disappointing. I feel like there should have been a little bit more risk involved when doing stupid things, which I do all the time. But, you know, all in all, it's not a massive complaint. Severed Steel is action-packed and there are so many enemies. And these enemies are different types too. You have guys with shields, guys with flamethrowers, guys with helicopters tied to their back. These all force you to adapt on the fly. This level of depth really adds to the experience, and coupled with the environment, allows you to get rather creative. Now, unfortunately, there really isn't much of a story to describe, but the main campaign is definitely worth playing. The map designs and the sparing amounts of story and humor are fully worth exploring. Particularly later in the game, there were some points that really made me laugh in surprise and confusion. Some of the objectives get a bit odd, and this really adds to the charm of the game. They didn't need to add these in, but I'm really glad they did. The gameplay did get a little repetitive after a while, but the campaign is so short that I didn't mind. I'll touch on this more later. All that being said, I thoroughly enjoyed my 3 hours with the main campaign. Now for some reason, the Epic version of this game doesn't seem to run on DX12 by default. That meant when I first booted up the game, I didn't have any access to the DLSS options since I have an NVIDIA graphics card, or the ray tracing option. To solve this, you're going to have to fiddle around in the Epic Games launcher. First you'll need to go to Settings, then scroll down and find Severed Steel. Expand that and select Additional Command Line Arguments. Finally add -DX12. This solved the problem for me and will hopefully solve it for you too. I thought the game looked great, particularly the lighting. With the balance they have between the darkness and the bright saturated colours, I think they really nailed the neon sci-fi aesthetic. Blasting a hole in the wall or someone flailing around with a flamethrower just lights up the room, and it really made the game pop. Even the small details, like your gun flashing if you're low on ammo, was done really well. The textures used aren't exactly high detail, but again, given how good the lighting looks, how fast paced the action is, and the fact the environment is destructible, it's barely noticeable. There was only one place where I noticed a drop in frame rate. Ooh, that was a frame rate hit. Other than that, the game was pretty smooth. I was running this on an RTX 3090 with DLS and ray tracing on. One of my favourite things about this game was the music. I think they were completely on point with it. There's a mix between suspense, upbeat techno, drum and bass, ambient, and what I think might be called chill step. I mentioned flow state earlier. Well, it's the music that really transforms this game from a regular shooter into one of the most flow state inducing experiences I've ever had. Running on a wall in bullet time, taking out 3 guys all with ambient music in the background, messes up your perception of time. And I think they include over 2 hours worth of music. I was listening to the soundtrack while writing the script and I love it. I think you will too. Have a listen. Now, as I've mentioned a couple times now, the main campaign is short and there isn't much of a story to speak about. I played on the Tempered Steel difficulty, which was selected as the default. Once you get the hang of the mechanics, this mode did feel a bit too easy. I noticed I kept cheesing the slide function over and over again. I would actually consciously try wall running instead, just to make the gameplay more visually appealing. I think this is where the main motivation for replaying the game lies. Getting better at playing the game in a more cinematic way, and knowing which circumstances specific movements should be used. Coupled with increasing the difficulty, I still think there will be some value in replaying the story for some. For a nomad and a non-perfectionist like me though, I felt the gameplay did get a bit too repetitive, and I won't be replaying the main campaign. But I don't want to take away from the fact that I did enjoy the game. There are also the other game modes, Firefight and Rogue Steel. Now I understand the appeal of the Firefight mode, which is where you complete challenges and compete on an online scoreboard. Now this isn't really my cup of tea, but if you want to perfect your craft, I think this would be the place where you kept playing the game. I was a bit confused by the Rogue Steel mode, it felt a bit gimmicky to me. It is an interesting twist to collect and use these mutator cards, but I don't really think they add too much to the experience. For example, when starting, I had the option of a random weapon or no weapon at all. To be honest, unless I dialed up the difficulty, I don't think these options would make much of a difference. Even if I didn't start with a weapon, sliding into a guy and taking his would solve that issue pretty quickly and wouldn't put you at too much of a disadvantage. In the main campaign, there were so many times when I ran out of ammo and I would have to find a weapon or take one, so you're already getting that experience from the game without a special card. Later, I got a card which would refill my ammo if I got a melee kill. I like the incentive to use more melee attacks because they are awesome, but I think the challenge of finding a weapon really adds to the experience. I feel this card would actually make the action less fun. I think what could have been a better alternative to this mode is if all the cards were nerfs and you had to choose how you'd be limited. This would force you to make difficult decisions based on how you play and would make the experience more challenging. For example, if you had to choose between limited bullet time or starting without a weapon, I feel this would be a more interesting decision compared to deciding to take a nerf with a higher point multiplier or a buff. At the end of the day, I'm not a massive fan of shooters, and I won't be replaying the game. But I do think Severed Steel does offer some interesting solutions to keep a lot of people invested. I would say definitely give these game modes a try, and don't let my preferences stop you from enjoying them. So should you get this game? If you can get it for free this week, of course you should. You have absolutely nothing to lose. But should you actually play it? That's a big yes for me. I almost never play first person shooters, but even I enjoyed this game. I won't replay Severed Steel or keep playing it, but the fact the main campaign was so short, it was a refreshing break from the type of games I usually play. If first person shooters are your thing, I would definitely recommend trying this out. This is such a cinematic and zen game with a bunch of charm and will make you feel like a movie star for a couple of hours. Is it worth buying if you didn't manage to get it for free? I would probably wait for a sale or get a cheap CD key. Again, the cheapest key I saw was about £7.60, but at that price, it's probably cheaper than a cinema ticket, so I suggest trying it out. So now we come up to our table of savings. How much you as a gamer have saved from Epic giving this game away for free. I have two lists to measure savings. When we get the game for free, but it isn't actually worth playing, it only goes into our technically saved list. I mean, what's the point of getting a free game for it only to gather digital dust in your library? That's not a real saving. But when we get a game for free that we would consider being worth paying for if it wasn't for free, it will go into our technically saved list, but it'll also go into our actually saved list. This is because you've actually saved money not paying for a game that you may have paid for. I hope that makes sense, don't worry about it if it doesn't, but I am going to call Severed Steel, which can otherwise be bought at the CD key price of £7.59, an actual saving. This means it goes into both lists, so congratulations to Severed Steel. Now, was this the best game I've ever reviewed? Well, technically yeah. It's the first game I've ever reviewed, which also means it's the worst game I've ever reviewed. But don't let that stop you. I really recommend picking it up from Epic Games. Again, we're not affiliated with Epic or anything like that, and the game will be free until the 3rd of August 2023. That's all from me. I'd love to hear what you think, so please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. If you liked the video, please give it a like. If you didn't, by all means give it a thumbs down. If you'd like to watch more reviews from The Nomad, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching and see you next time.